All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling Rosemary's Baby.
Ooh, a classic.
Yeah, a real horror classic.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot to unpack. We've got analysis covering the novel, the famous film, even the sequels.
And the sequels are, well, we'll get to that.
Right, right. But first, let's set the stage. Paranoia, Satanism, motherhood gone wrong. It's all there, ready to go deep.
Let's do it. I think what always gets me is how relatable some of the fears are, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally. I
Yeah.
mean, that fear of losing control, especially when you're expecting a baby.
It's primal, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the novel, 1967, Ira Levin, drops us right into 1960s Manhattan. We meet Rosemary and Guy Woodhouse, this young couple, and they move into the Bramford.
The Bramford, even the name, it just sounds creepy.
Doesn't it? It sets the tone. But Levin, he's a master at that slow burn dread. He isolates Rosemary with these neighbors, the Castavets.
Oh, the Castavets, so unsettling.
And as she starts to figure out what they're really about, we're right there with her. The paranoia just builds.
You get sucked in. But it's not just spooky neighbors, is it? Levin's tackling some big stuff here.
No, absolutely not. He's dealing with male control, women's choices, things that were really ahead of their time.
Especially for 1967.
Imagine yourself as Rosemary. You're pregnant, you're vulnerable, and no one's taking you seriously. Sadly, it's a story that still resonates today. Right?
Absolutely. That feeling of being dismissed, being told you're imagining things, it's gaslighting, pure and simple.
Yeah. And then he adds this layer of religious anxiety, which, thinking about the 60s, makes sense.
Totally. Cold War, communism, the occult was having a moment.
A perfect storm for those anxieties.
Yeah.
And then comes Polanski, 1968. He takes those anxieties and he gives them this visual style. Instant horror classic, wouldn't you say?
Oh, without a doubt. Polanski, he understands suspense. He uses these little cues, visual metaphors, and boom, you're hooked.
And the cast, Mia Farrow. Just incredible. That descent into fear, it's heartbreaking.
And John Cassavetes is Guy. He's got that charm, but there's something off about him, too.
And let's not forget Ruth Gordon as Minnie Castavet.
Oh, she's the best. So sweet, yet so terrifying. The Oscar was well-deserved.
Okay, let's talk about some of those iconic parts. The lullaby.
Yeah.
Rosemary's haircut. That pixie cut became huge.
And those shots of the Bramford building itself, they stick with you, don't they?
They really do. And they become part of, like, our horror vocabulary.
Yeah, totally. Like the lullaby, it's not just the melody, it's how he uses it. At first, it's almost nice, you know?
Comforting.
Yeah, but then as things go on, it gets all twisted and weird, just like what's happening to Rosemary.
It's brilliant how sound design can do that.
Right.
Manipulate your emotion.
Totally. And then there's that ending. So ambiguous.
Did it all really happen, or was it all in her head? Polanski, he plays with you, leaves you with this unease.
Masterful filmmaking. Of course, we do have to, acknowledge the elephant in the room.
Right. Polanski's personal life. We won't get into the specifics, but it does cast a shadow, right?
It's a tough one, for sure. Appreciating the art, but then there's the artist's actions. Makes you think, how do we engage with that?
A very important conversation to have. So you have this huge success, and naturally, Hollywood wants more. Enter. Look what's happened to Rosemary's Baby, 1976, made for TV.
Ah, yes, the sequel.
And unfortunately, well, it just didn't quite get there, did it?
It tried,
We're
picking up with Rosemary's son, Adrian, dealing with his demonic heritage.
Which, when you think about it, that's a great concept.
Right. Growing up as the child of Satan, all that internal conflict.
But the execution, it just wasn't there. It lost that psychological depth that made Rosemary's Baby so good.
You went for shock value, almost campy, instead of those deeper, more unsettling themes.
Like it took all the wrong lessons from the original.
Yeah, exactly. They could have explored Adrian so much more. And think about the 70s, Vietnam, Watergate, all that distrust of authority.
Missed opportunity for sure.
It really is a shame. They could have woven in so much, About the era, the social climate.
Yeah, like a reflection of those times.
Exactly. But instead, it just went for the easy scares.
Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. 2014, we get another attempt. A mini-series this time.
Oh, yeah, directed by Agnieszka Holland.
Right, and they move the story to Paris. Tried a fresh take, maybe?
Paris? Interesting choice. But did it work? I don't know.
It's tricky, right? Because the original Rosemary's Baby, it thrives on that New York feeling.
That claustrophobia, even though you're in a huge city.
You're surrounded, but still isolated.
Exactly. Rosemary's trapped, no escape. Paris, it has a different vibe, you know?
Definitely. Maybe it lost some of that intensity. And the miniseries, it also got criticized for being a bit slow.
Yeah, the pacing. Compared
Mhm.
to the original, it felt stretched out.
Like they were trying to cram in too much.
Too many side stories, too many characters. It took away from the core, you know? The
And
psychological drama.
the cast was good, though. Zoe Saldana, Jason Isaacs.
Oh, talented actors, for sure. But even they couldn't save a weak script.
So we've got a sequel that went too far, a miniseries that maybe didn't go far enough.
But one thing's for sure. The original Rosemary's Baby, that impact is undeniable. It left its mark on horror.
Oh, massive impact. You could even argue it changed horror.
Absolutely. It brought in this new wave, what we call elevated horror.
It's not just about jump scares. It's about the psychology, the deeper themes.
Like The Omen, Hereditary, all those films that mess with your mind.
Midsommar, even. They all owe something to Rosemary's Baby.
Family secrets, paranoia, blurring the lines between real and nightmare.
And the crazy thing is, the themes Levin was exploring back then, they feel even more relevant now, don't they?
It's crazy, right? Like he tapped into something timeless. That fear of the unknown, the loss of control.
And that fear, it's universal, right? It doesn't go away.
No, and let's not forget the visuals, the imagery, so iconic.
Rosemary, pregnant, that silhouette.
By Black Bassinet.
The Castavet's apartment, all bright and cheerful, but so creepy underneath. They've become like horror shorthand. You see them. You know what kind of story you're getting.
That slow-burning dread, it sticks with you.
It really does. But beyond the scares, Rosemary's Baby is also a social commentary. It's about motherhood, about who has power.
Rosemary's voice, it's taken away. Her body, it's used.
Right.
And she's constantly being told she's wrong. Crazy, even.
And again, those themes, they're sadly still relevant.
Yeah.
Especially with everything going on around reproductive rights.
It's about bodily autonomy, about being heard and believed.
A film made in the 60s, but it sparks conversations that are still happening today. Powerful stuff.
Really powerful. And speaking of today, you know, there's been talk about bringing Rosemary's Baby back, right?
Yeah, there have been whispers. Reboots are huge right now.
But with Rosemary's Baby, it's different. It's not just nostalgia. It's that the story, the core of it, it still works.
It's about fear, paranoia, things that are maybe even more intense now than in the 60s.
And a new adaptation, if it's done right, it could really dig into that. Give us a Rosemary's Baby for the digital age.
Ooh. Now that's an interesting thought.
Think about it. Social media, conspiracy theories, all that online stuff, the erosion of privacy.
Constant surveillance. It could be terrifying.
The original, it was about hidden evil in normal places. Now it could be a tech company, a creepy online group, who knows?
Using tech to control people.
It's already happening, right? In a way that makes the story even scarier.
Absolutely. And speaking of updates, we could also go deeper into the mythology, right?
Yeah. The Coven, we only get glimpses in the original. What do they really believe? What are they trying to do?
There's a whole world there to explore. And think about the Bramford building itself.
Ooh, all those dark secrets, the history.
We could delve into the architecture, the real-life stories, the urban legends.
New characters, too. People connected to the Coven, some fighting it, some embracing it.
And with today's special effects, the visuals could be insane. Really get under your skin.
It's exciting to think about taking those core themes, paranoia, isolation, and giving them a modern spin.
So the question is, are people ready for a new Rosemary's Baby?
Is it time for Rosemary to be reborn, so to speak? For a new generation to experience that fear? It's a big question, isn't it? I mean, reboots, they're everywhere, but Rosemary's Baby, it's different.
Yeah, it's not just a brand name, right? It's the themes, that sense of dread. And that resonates today, maybe even more.
Oh, absolutely. We're living in pretty anxious times, you know?
For sure. So a new adaptation, done well, it could really tap into that. It could be Rosemary's Baby, but for like the now.
Exactly. But whether we see Rosemary's story again on screen or not, the impact is already there, right?
It's a story that it sticks with you. It makes you think twice about
It
things.
makes you look over your shoulder, you know? And that ending, it's brilliant.
So from the novel to Polanski's film, even those later attempts, we've gone pretty deep into Rosemary's Baby.
We've seen the paranoia, the manipulation, the power of belief, all of it.
And what's interesting to me is, for all the supernatural stuff, it's really about a human experience. Right.
Totally. The fear of the unknown, trying to have control, knowing who to trust.
When the world feels like it's shifting around you, that's scary stuff.
It is. And to Levin's credit, he wrote this back in the 60s, but it still hits hard today. Those fears, they don't go away.
They're just like part of being human, I guess. What always gets me is how Rosemary's Baby, it makes you question everything.
Oh, yeah, totally. Who can you trust? Is anything real? Are you in control or are you being played?
And you start looking at everyone differently, right? Your neighbors, your friends, even your family.
Because anyone could be part of it, you know? That's what makes it so effective.
Chilling stuff. So on that note, dear listener, we'll leave you to ponder the world of Rosemary's Baby.
And if you haven't experienced it yet, well, we highly recommend it.
But be warned. Once you step into Rosemary's world, you might not see things the same way again.
Because sometimes the most terrifying things, they're not out there, they're much closer to home.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, keep questioning everything and maybe sleep with the lights on.